Avatar: The Last Airbender is an iconic show. One of the many things that make Avatar so great is the fact that it has such a memorable cast of characters. So today I will be using two teams of Pokemon based on characters from Avatar: The Last Airbender. This team was suggested by Joey Hokiaim, which I'm very excited about, even though it's probably been like a year since you suggested this, my bad. If you have an idea for a Pokemon team, be sure to comment below, and I will use it. And if you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. And now, without further ado, let's talk about the Pokemon that I chose and why I picked them. So before I get to the main cast of characters, I want to start off with the side characters, because the side characters are equally, if not more iconic than the main cast in my opinion. Iroh is the perfect example of this. I mean, how could you possibly hate Iroh? He's in that tier with Muriel from Courage the Cowardly Dog of old characters that you just can't hate. Anyway, I thought the best pick for Iroh was Emboar. I kind of think that it looks a lot like him, especially with the beard that Emboar has. The next character that I like to talk about is Momo. Momo is an iconic companion of Aang's. So for Momo, I decided to pick Grafaiai. I really think that Grafaiai's appearance matches Momo pretty well, especially with the ears. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a Pokemon for Appa. A Pokemon like Bouffalon that represents him wasn't in Scarlet and Violet, and there is no real Bison Pokemon. The next character on this team is Suki. She is the leader of the Kyoshi Warriors, and she is Sokka's girlfriend. Very good character, very underrated in my opinion. I decided to go with Oricorio Sensu. I thought Oricorio Sensu matched her appearance pretty well, especially with the whole fan aesthetic. The next character I'd like to talk about is the main antagonist of Avatar, like the main one, which is Fire Lord Ozai, or as he later becomes throughout the series, Phoenix King Ozai. And of course, since he's the Phoenix King, I decided to give him Galarian Moltres. This Pokemon looks absolutely wicked, and it kind of fits him pretty well. More than regular Moltres, in my opinion. I mean, look at this thing. It looks pure evil. For the final two slots in this first team, I wanted to go with two characters that I personally like, those being Mei and Ty Lee. Mei was pretty easy to come up with a Pokemon for. I decided to go with Bisharp. I thought Bisharp was a pretty sharp Pokemon, considering her combat skills with knives and everything. As for Ty Lee, I decided to go with Medicham. I thought Medicham matched her overall color scheme and her design a lot. Why don't we get into the second team with the main characters and talk about Azula herself. Now, Azula was a pretty hard character to come up with a Pokemon for. Eventually, I ended up with Salazzle. I thought Salazzle matched her appearance very well, being this smug-like Pokemon. Interestingly, Salazzle gets access to Thunder Wave, which I put because of Azula's ability to Lightning Bend. Of course, if I'm talking about Azula, that also means I have to talk about Zuko. I went with Monferno. I went with Monferno over Infernape just because Zuko is still like a teenager. Middle evolution starter Pokemon tend to embody the teenage aspect, so I decided to go with Monferno over Infernape. Speaking of middle evolution starters, we have Sokka, who I decided to go with Duat. I thought Duat matched him really well in terms of his water tribe outfit. I was gonna probably go with Marowak because he has that iconic boomerang, but Marowak is not in Scarlet and Violet, but I thought that Duat was still a good pick. Now, of course, if I'm talking about Sokka, I gotta talk about Katara. So I went with Milotic for Katara. Maybe I should have went with Vaporeon, just because if you put it side to side against Duat, they could kind of pass off as siblings, but I thought Milotic was still an okay fit. The next character is a very beloved character, and that's Toph. I think Excadrill is like a really good Pokemon for her, just because of how she grew up, her lore in terms of learning earthbending, being how she learned from moles. And last but certainly not least is Aang. Aang is not an easy character to come up with a Pokemon for. Honestly, I would have went with Linoon because Linoon looks like it has the arrow on its forehead. I decided to go with Mew, specifically Shiny Mew, because Shiny Mew looks like it's been in that iceberg all its life. But also, Mew is a Pokemon like Aang that is like kind of small, but has a lot of like potential. And the most important thing is that it can learn all four of the elemental moves. So on this Mew, I have Hurricane for airbending, I have Hydro Pump for water bending, I have Earth Power for earth bending, and Fire Blast for fire bending. It's like a really good Pokemon. It's one of the few Pokemon that gets access to all of the moves that have the bending coverages. So that's the two teams of Pokemon that I am using for this Avatar team. Without further ado, let's get right into the battles. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, lovely people. Today I am using an Avatar team. Now I have two teams of Pokemon like I mentioned, and this is a show that I haven't seen in a long time, but when I was younger, I watched like every single episode at least 10 times. I also even watched Avatar Extras. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but it was essentially like the episodes of Avatar, but with little fun facts. Anyway, I'm leading things off here with my Moltres. I get a flinch on the Iron Valiant turn 1, which was pretty crazy because it ended up being Focus Sash. So that was definitely a really lucky crit on my part. They're just going to go for the Shadow Sneak and take out my Moltres. Now, this is a Choice Scarf Galarian Moltres. This has Fiery Wrath, Air Slash. Fiery Wrath is just a really fitting move for Ozai. I have Air Slash, U-Turn, and Memento on this set with Terra Dark. So Iron Bundle is going to swap in. Really don't like dealing with this Pokemon with this team, but I do have my Violite Bisharp here. Now, this Bisharp has, well, it's physically defensive. I have Foul Play and Low Kick on this set. I just went for the Low Kick on the off chance that the Iron Bundle may go for a Hydro Pump versus me, but Dragonite with a Rocky Helmet comes in, and they unfortunately have Fire Punch. I have Foul Play on this, which does a lot of damage. I was thankful for the chip damage that I got. They are going to take me out with a Fire Punch, which is unfortunate because the Rocky Helmet chip most certainly put me in range. But I wanted to go for Rest Sleep Talk on that as well and like go for a recovery and like try to see if I could pull like Sleep Talk Foul Play. So Iron Bundle comes back in. I have Suki here. This is a Heavy Duty Boots Defog Revelation Dance. Oricorio, I tank the Freeze Dry from the Iron Bundle, but I get frozen. Oh no, I was gonna be able to go for another Revelation Dance, and that would have been able to take out the Iron Bundle, which would have been a great KO, but unfortunately Suki gets frozen, and yeah, I'm gonna get taken out by another Freeze Dry. But the important thing is that this Iron Bundle doesn't have its booster energy anymore. So I'm going to be able to outspeed it and revenge KO it with Ozai, which is great. Like I said, that Pokemon is really threatening. Speaking of really threatening Pokemon, Great Tusk comes in. Now, I was 100% expecting them to want to Terrasilize this turn because, like, why would you switch in a Great Tusk? You're already going to be weak to Air Slash, right? So I figured that this would be Terra Steel Great Tusk, but they end up being Terra Fairy, and they have Terra Fairy Play Rough, which is really unfortunate for Tylee. I had a Blunder Policy Dynamic Punch Medicham, which was pretty crazy, but unfortunately, I wasn't expecting Terra Fairy Play Rough, I'll say that much. My girlies are really doing great in this battle, I just realized, oh no. Now, I'm going to bring in Iroh. This is a fully special Emboar. I have to Terrasilize because I'm expecting like an Earthquake or like a Headlong Rush. They do go for Headlong Rush. I am able to resist that. It does a lot of damage still though. But I'm going to be able to pop a Solar Beam. Now, this Emboar gets some really interesting special moves. I have Power Herb Solar Beam with Terra Grass. It's going to do a lot of damage, and it should be able to get the KO versus the Great Tusk. But Great Tusk ends up also being Focus Sash. Oh my goodness. So that's unfortunate because they're going to be able to hit me with another Play Rough. I was expecting an Ice Spinner, but thankfully they just have Play Rough, and I am able to tank that and go for the Scald. Look at that. Look at that Emboar animation. That looks so good. Emboar using special moves. Oh, wait, I just realized I was water bending. That's not legal. So I'm able to take out the Great Tusk, but the Meowscarados come in. I didn't really have any switch-ins into this, and I expected that they were just going to U-turn anyway, and that's just going to be enough to take out Iroh. But Iroh did a really great job in terms of getting rid of the Great Tusk with the special set. So there goes my Terra, there goes both of our Terra options, and the Meowscarada is just going to U-turn out, probably into Dragonite is what I was expecting, because Dragonite, if it has Extreme Speed, it could just go for Extreme Speed or whatever I bring in. So I'm going to bring in my Galarian Moltres here. Now, they are just going to Extreme Speed. On this turn, I believe I went for the Air Slash because it's going to be able to hit the Meowscarada super effectively. And it's going to do some decent damage to the last Pokemon Fluttermane in the back. So they're going to bring in the Meowscarada, but Meowscarada ends up outspeeding me. I was like, oh wow, okay. Since I'm Choice Scarf, now I know that they are Choice Scarf as well. So that puts me in a really interesting position for my last Pokemon, my Grafaiai. It's all down to Momo. Now, this is a really, really fun set. This has Air Balloon, so Meowscarada is going to pop my Air Balloon, which is really, really great because that's going to activate my Unburden ability, and I'm running a Swords Dance sweeping Grafaiai. So now I have a Swords Dance. I'm +2 speed because of Unburdened and +2 attack, and I have Acrobatics, which one-shots the Meowscarada, and the last Pokemon is Fluttermane. They don't have booster speed, they don't have Focus Sash. I'm able to one-shot that with Acrobatics, and Momo just came in so clutch for me in the end game. Thank you so much, Momo, for being just amazing in that game. So, on to the second game. If you are enjoying this team, by the way, please feel free to leave a like on the video. I would really, really appreciate it. Now, this game was really, really, really something. So the Ditto is gonna go for the Imposter lead. I unfortunately missed my attack, and of course they land their Fire Blast as well. I wanted to see what the Ditto would lock themselves into, but it ends up being Life Orb Ditto. What the heck? Now, I did explain my Aang set already, but I have Expert Belt on the item as well for that. So they're just gonna go for a Hydro Pump. I'm gonna swap in my Katara. This is a very bulky Milotic. I have leftovers on this. I thought I had heavy duty boost, but thankfully the leftovers animation played before I could make that error, even though I just said it. So in the intro I mentioned that I should have made Katara Vaporeon, but I think Milotic is also still a very fair pick because it's like, you know, very regal water type. It also has her eye color and everything as well. So I thought it was still like an okay fit for her. I also saw like a lot of fan art that depicted her with Milotic. I almost said Katara with Katara, by the way. So I'm gonna be able to burn the Jolteon upon it switching in, but I imagine maybe it's like Quick Feet. I'm not sure if it's Quick Feet, but if it is Quick Feet, I just activated it. But I could bring in my Excadrill here, but Jolteon ends up going for Fury Impulse, which is gonna drop my special attack. If I stayed in, I would have gotten the competitive boost. I just realized that would have increased my special attack. This Jolteon is going for Light Screen. I have no idea what Jolteon set this could be running. Now, this top is a fairly standard Excadrill set. This is a Swords Dance, Earthquake, Iron Head, and Rapid Spin. I actually have Terra Normal Rapid Spin on this, which is pretty crazy. But obviously, I had to run like an Earthquake set just because of the fact that, you know, it's tough. She's very known for Earthbending. She's like, I would honestly say she's probably my favorite character in the entire series, next to Iroh. But I'm going to be able to take out the Excadrill with the Earthquake, so that was nice. I anticipated that maybe they didn't see that I had an Air Balloon, but I was able to outspeed it anyway, and the Garchomp that comes in, it's going to go for the Bulldoze, which is going to activate my competitive, which is nice. Man, I could have stayed in because I wasn't expecting them to go for a Bulldoze that turn, right? I was expecting like maybe like Scale Shot, and then that would break my Air Balloon, outspeed me. I wouldn't be able to KO it, and then they would be able to like Earthquake afterward. But that Garchomp ended up being pretty interesting. You'll see that later. So this Araquanid. So I'm going to get some leftovers recovery. Now, this turn I thought, well, I want to go for the Skull, try to see if I could burn it. But it ends up being Water Absorb and not Water Bubble. But also, I'm a complete numbnut because I didn't realize that you can't actually burn Araquanid if it has Water Bubble. With Water Bubble, you cannot be burnt, and I didn't know that. But I also didn't realize that this Pokemon will be Water Absorb instead of Water Bubble because 99% of the time, it would be like Water Bubble, right, to boost its liquidations. So I'm gonna bring in my Zuko, get as much chip damage as possible, and that's some really great damage with Flare Blitz. Thankfully it doesn't have Water Bubble to have the damage of that. This is actually a Choice Scarf Monferno, so I was like, okay, that's good. That should be a range for me to go into my Mew and go for the Hurricane. I also have Terra Flying on this because, you know, Aang is an Airbender. Unfortunately, I miss, and that's really, really rough because the Leech Life is going to take me out, and it's going to recover a lot of damage. Now, that was really unfortunate. I was wondering if that would be enough to like take it out, because I could put it in range of my Azula if it didn't, and I didn't want to Terrasilize. I have Terra Electric Terra Blast on this, but the problem was that they have the Houndstone in the back, which is 100% going to be running Last Respects, and I needed the Terra Normal on my Excadrill in order to be able to deal with that. So unfortunately, I couldn't get off. I barely got off anything versus this Araquanid. It must be an Assault Vested Araquanid. That, or it's just his natural special defense, which it has a lot of. I'm not exactly sure. If I'm being honest, just because of the way that I went for Scald in this Araquanid, you can tell that I'm pretty inexperienced when it comes to facing this Pokemon. So this turn I thought, well, I have to go for the Swords Dance here. I should be able to take a Liquidation because it's not Water Bubble, and it does less than half, which is really great, and it does pop my Air Balloon, but I'm going to go for the Terra Normal Rapid Spin. It's going to boost it up to 60 base power, and that's actually going to be enough to take out the Araquanid, so over half health Rapid Skin KO, and that's amazing. Did I just say Rapid Skin? Anyway, Garchomp comes in. I have a speed boost, so I thought, okay, this is fine. I could just outspeed this and go for the Earthquake. They end up terrestrializing into an electric type though. I was like, oh my goodness. So they're gonna be Terra Electric, but then they end up outspeeding me. I was like, what? It's Choice Scarf, Terra Electric, Thunderfang. What is happening? I take it on 4 HP though, and since they're an electric type, they're gonna be super effective to my Earthquake, and they're gonna just get taken out there. Oh my goodness, I was not expecting that series of turns. So Glimmora swaps in. Now, judging by how they swapped in their Garchomp first, I had thought that this wasn't going to be a Focus Sash Glimmora. Unfortunately, it is the rare late game Sash Glimmora, which really is unfortunate for me because that is going to be able to take out my Excadrill with Mortal Spin. And yeah, the Houndstone in the back is looking very problematic, but I have my Duat. It's fine. So this is, I get poisoned by Mortal Spin. This is a Swords Dance. This is Swords Dance Duat with the Eviolite. Now, this has a Sacred Sword, Aqua Cutter, and Aqua Jet. I put a lot of sword moves on this because obviously Sokka has his sword. He also has that Meteorite sword that he got from his master in that one episode. So I'm gonna go for the Aqua Jet. I was really worried about them just revealing Energy Ball, or like even a Power Gem would be doing a lot of damage to me. So I didn't want to be greedy and go for another Swords Dance. So the last Pokemon is the Houndstone. Now, I'm gonna go for the Aqua Cutter here. It does well over half, which is really, really great, but they have a Citrus Berry. So I was like, okay, well, they're not Choice Banded. That may mean that I have a shot to tank this with my Milotic, assuming that I'm able to get off a burn on this with Scald. So Sokka gets taken out. My last Pokemon is Katara. I should be able to outspeed this as well. So I'm gonna go for the Scald. It does... I was like, okay, please get the burn. It doesn't get the burn though. If it got the burn, I would have been able to put it in range for another Scald to take out the Houndstone in the end. But geez, maybe I should have saved my Excadrill. But that's the end of both games. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is SkyLaaa. Don't forget to smile, and I will see you all next time.